Welcome back to SimplePhotoshopTips.com. This is part one of a multi-part series. In this lesson we're going to specifically focus on adjustment layers and masking. So our end result when we're completed with this project will look like this, but we're going to start by breaking up this lesson into smaller chunks so that it's easier to follow. And if you're just interested in learning about adjustment layers and masking, then you'll find this lesson extremely beneficial by itself. Alright, to start with, we're going to create an adjustment layer. There's two ways you can do this. My preferred method is by going to your layers palette, and if you don't have the layers palette up, if you hit F7, you'll see that it comes up. You can also get to adjustment layers by going to layers, new adjustment layers, and choosing the adjustment layer here. But we're going to use the little circle that's half black, half white here, and we're going to choose black and white. And what this is going to do is it drops an adjustment layer on top of your image. So essentially it turns the image black and white, but this is much different than converting your image to a black and white image. This is non-destructive, and so we can turn it on and off, and more importantly we can mask with it. So I'm going to show you how to mask a simple way with adjustment layers that's non-destructive. We've created this layer, and to the right of the actual adjustment layer is what's called a mask. The way a mask works is if it's white, then everything is exposed on the adjustment layer. But if you want to expose what's underneath that adjustment layer, we're essentially going to mask out the adjustment layer that we created. So I have just a brush here that I'm clicking in, and you'll notice my adjustment layer now has this big black blob where I've painted. So all I've done is taken a brush. I have a black color here, and I've painted. Now you may run into an instance where you forget that you're on an adjustment layer and you choose, let's say, red here. You'll notice that it goes to grayscale. If you find that you're choosing colors and they're just going to grayscale, then that means you're probably in a mask mode. The reason it does that is if I'm selected here and I'm masking, it's using gray rather than a full black. So gray doesn't fully expose where black does. So you'll notice, and it may be hard to see in your image, that the opaqueness of the gray is much less. So more is exposed through it. So we're going to undo, and I just Control Z. And if you're new to Photoshop and used to using shortcuts, Control Z typically keeps taking you back. However, in Photoshop, to go back additional history steps, you have to hold Control Alt Z, and you'll continue to step back. Once you hit Control Z again, it'll pop you back to where you previously were. And that's a very helpful tip to remember. So we're going to complete this mask here, and I'm just going to continue to paint. And notice that I'm really kind of doing this sloppy to start with. In fact, I'll do it really sloppy to begin with. And this is just one method of masking, and I'm showing this method for this series because it's a fairly basic and simple means of masking, and easy for newcomers or even experienced users to use. So I'm getting the remainder of this masked out. Now occasionally I'll use shortcut keys to adjust the size of my brush. You'll notice the size of the brush increasing, and yet I'm not going up to here and changing the brush size. I'm actually using the open and close bracket. And so a open bracket actually makes smaller, and a closed bracket makes larger. I'm also using Control minus to zoom out and Control plus to zoom in. So I've got a really rough mask of this object. If I want to clean it up, and again I'm just going to show you a basic technique to start with. There are more advanced ways of doing this, but this one works very well, and even after learning the advanced, you'll find that you use it often. I need to switch between black and white because white will actually cover, basically covering my mask back up so that it doesn't show underneath it. So what I do is I hit the X key and it swaps between these two values. You can also click the swap button here, but the X key is very handy for masking. You'll find it speeds you up a lot. I'm using my bracket to resize down, and I'm going to swap to the white so that I can cover up. Now, I like to hold down Shift to get really sharp, clean, straight lines. When you're working on something that has a hard edge, like this vehicle here, you can do that. If you're working on hair, this technique does not work as well, and you may have to use a more advanced selection technique. But this will work well for this car example and for learning masking. So we're just going to continue around the edge, holding down Shift to get straight lines, and resizing when appropriate. Again, I use the close bracket to make larger. And so you would just continue through the remainder of this image, cleaning it up and finishing the mask. Again, if you make a mistake and you go into the color area, hit X again and paint that back in. So it's very easy to swap between masking out the layer and exposing what's under it, and bringing that layer back. So you don't have to worry about making mistakes with mask. And again, that's called non-destructive editing. So that's it for this lesson. We'll continue to clean this up, and in the next lesson we'll take it from there.